Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me this week on another episode of The Chamber Within. Like last week, I mentioned that I wanted to discuss how my guides showed me that our thoughts create reality. And although this is another true blessing to get this knowledge directly, I want to be responsible before I begin to share and include a trigger warning in my introduction because this episode has mention of self harm. So, if you are uncomfortable with that subject matter in any way, you now have the ability to exit the episode. Okay, so moving on, I'll go ahead and begin. So, our normal definition for asking is to make a request, right? When we want something in our lives, we make a plea, we pray, or we may, you know, beg in a way that you may not think is begging, like, please, if I can just do this, I'll have this, I'll do this, right? You making a plea bargain, or you begging for some sort of object to materialize because your life will be better for it, for having it. And then the spiritual sense, asking is more than a verbal request. So when you say, or excuse me, when I say ask, I'm actually referring to an expectation you have for a particular outcome, right? A belief. And what I mean by that is that you will receive what you expect to experience. If I don't bring an umbrella, I will get wet outside. If it's raining, if I don't get enough sleep, I will be tired. Just side note, when I was younger, I did this little kind of thought um, exercise. When I was up a little late, I would pray that whatever amount of sleep I got, it would be enough and I wouldn't feel tired in the morning. And every single time, I must have done it maybe about a handful of times. But every single time I would have that prayer that whatever amount of sleep I got would be enough, it would be enough. I would wake up fully refreshed, no matter the hours. And I thought it was really cool. I didn't know that I was practicing um, uh, metaphysical or spirituality or whatever it's called. I didn't know I was practicing to um, trust in the power of my expectations, right? Magic, some even call it, but I always thought that was really cool. So asking is something we do with our entire being, our vibratory being. And this is the wisdom that I received from one of the darkest nights that I have ever experienced. I was very sad and I was having difficulty dealing with my current circumstances, so much so that I contemplated hurting myself. I could not understand why things were going south for me because at this point I had considered myself a disciplined spiritual student. I was only 1 year into my spiritual journey. I figured if I was obedient, I meditated every day, did my affirmations, and stayed faithful that things would turn around, that I was doing all I could do. I even said out loud in anger to my spiritual guides that I know for a fact that if it were me, I wouldn't do this to my person if I was a guide, right? I wouldn't leave my person begging without responding to them. I would answer them if they cried out to me. Yes, I was angry, and I even tried to shame them into helping me when I wanted assistance. Uh, they actually responded to me in two ways, and on this night, it was one of those ways. You know, I must say that the affirmations and begging and trying to meditate every day were all new habits for me as I was in discovery of spirituality. And yes, my path had only begun, and all of this was me doing and not me being. I was very upset and crying because I was afraid of losing my apartment. Um, Eviction was imminent. My money wasn't increasing, it was actually decreasing, which was an undercurrent of my everyday thoughts. And anyway, after my loud crying session, which I had not had since I had left my marriage 2 years prior, I fell asleep angry and depressed. I had every intention of taking my own life the following morning. I felt as though I was done trying. So, in the middle of the night, I could feel myself being sat up with my back brushing up against my headboard. Both of my hands pushed my torso upwards as they balanced beside my body next to my hips, right? I was, I guess, balancing myself as I sat up. Then the words, "Everything you have asked for, you've gotten." Those words came out of my mouth, but it was not my voice nor my personal belief. This voice was expressed as masculine and it felt authoritative. Now, as these words were leaving my mouth audibly, I saw pictures in my head simultaneously, but from my own point of view. I was re experiencing myself a few days prior searching for spare change to feed my cats, as I only needed $1 to buy a can to feed them both. Um, it was a replay, as if I was reliving the moment, but shown in quick flashes. This was the expectation I mentioned earlier. I hadn't dealt with much cash at that time, but I also didn't have any money left on my debit card. I was broke, but I just knew that I would be able to find a measly dollar somewhere if I had just searched long enough around my place. Like that was the belief. There is a dollar somewhere. And after I relived this experience in my mind's eye, I immediately understood this message that was coupled with my relived example. The pictures stopped flashing in my mind, and I had conscious control over my body again, just as I became fully awake. I was still so very tired from all of the crying. My eyes were sore and puffy as well, so I immediately wanted to go back to sleep. As I was turning to my left to lay back down on my belly, I saw a bluish white orb in the corner of my room by the closed door. It was the size of maybe a large, well, not too large of a ball. It was maybe the size of a soccer ball, if I had to guess. And it was around the height of the doorknob. So it was there, and then it shot straight up towards the ceiling, and it disappeared through the ceiling, revealing to me that it was indeed not a solid form. It became like a stream of light as it went upward. It moved so fast. And although this was quite a spectacle, I was deeply sad and did not bother to get up to investigate. I did think briefly about what came through me, and then I turned over on my belly to go back to sleep. I have since learned to ask better for of my circumstances and expect more to see better outcomes in my life. The truth was, over a year prior, I had plenty of money, but it was quickly dwindling without any replenishment. The money, in addition to being spiritually awakened, I guess made me think that everything was perfect and I didn't need to worry about um, my day to day spending, and I was a bit reckless with it. It all like came at once, and I didn't feel grounded in my spirituality where I'm bridging the high knowledge I'm getting with the responsibility of day to day actions. I was uh, high on the high vibes and very, very so much had my head in the clouds. And I loved it. I wouldn't take it back because I bought so many books and I did so much studying. I quit my job. I was really, really into diving deep into what I discovered as my spiritual awakening. Um, and then as time had went on, I became in constant fear of losing that money, and so I did. Because of this, I faced eviction, and once met with this realization, lost any ability to see positive outcomes for my future. Now, this advice allowed me to physically face this eviction and not harm myself, to choose my thoughts better, to become more responsible with my thinking. And it was what I had asked for vibrationally in earnest, right? The fear brought on more fear. And this visit changed my life. It helped me to be more accountable to my thoughts and expectations moving forward. You see, I noticed that they are often more effective, my guides, at reaching me when I am still and calm, not when I'm fighting the current of my situation, whatever that may be, with confusion and anger. And I often turn to these books that I bought during, my high on spirituality, uh, some people call spiritual psychosis. And I read that spirit can more readily connect with you when you're quiet and in reception. Specifically, so in the book Journey of Souls, Case Studies of Lives Between Lives, written by Michael Newton. During an interview he had with his patient while in the hypnotic state, Dr. Newton was able to tap into their higher mind and get answers about how spirit communicates with us. The patient said that the human body is encumbered by the immediacy of human emotion. Spirit is always in a state of stillness and can recognize the turbulence we may often experience from troubled thoughts. They try to carefully merge with our thought and gently touch the mind. I'm going to read an excerpt here from the book, actually. Okay, so it goes. Communicators are not all the same. Watchers, too, have a variety of abilities. If one of my company is in crisis, which means one of the people on earth, one of the souls he is responsible for as a guide, is physically hurt, sad, anxious, resentful, they send out great amounts of uncontrolled negative energy, which alerts me but exhausts them. This is the challenge of a watcher, to know when and how to communicate. When people want immediate relief, they may not be in the proper mode for reflection. This is on page 183. So Dr. Newton asks, well, in terms of abilities, can you tell me how you were awkward as an inexperienced guide? I wanted to rush in too fast to help without coordinating the patterns of thought we talked about. People can go numb. You don't get through to them when they have intense grief, for example. You are shut out of a cluttered mind when attentions are distracted and thought energy is scattered all about. So, in other words, it can be a challenge to get through the difficult emotions as it is kind of like a thought storm. And not to jump about too much, but in the other book that I have, Opening to Channel and How to Connect with Your Guide, written by Sanaya Roman and Duane Packer, they mention that guides communicate in a variety of ways. Um, some use pictures, like what I had experienced in the past, inspiration. Um, they can use verbal communication, like speaking through you, like also what I've had. Sometimes it's more subtle than others. With inspiration, it may feel like a great idea, but I have a whole list of books I go through on my TikTok page. If you have TikTok, my channel is called the underscore channel underscore within, where I have a ton of quotes that I go through that I think are helpful. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to tell this story because it's not one of the it's not all roses and sunshine when we receive helpful information, and sometimes it's necessary. I did not go through that to keep it to myself. I wanted to share with you um, that although I've experienced communication with my higher mind and my spirit guides, it did come by way of sadness, confusion, tough tribulations, and I want to reach out to those who may be also experiencing the same. So, again, thank you for joining me this week. I'd love to hear your feedback. You can connect with me on Substack at Dawn Ardeen. That's DAWNARDEN, or on the TikTok page that I mentioned, where I share my book quotes. And that will be all. Thank you for joining me. And if you can join me next week, I will be talking about forgiveness and how it is a gift to the self. not to the person you're forgiving. I want to really go over that because it was an enlightening way that I read through multiple books where how forgiveness is the gift to self. It is a release for the self. So have a great week, everyone, and I will talk to you later.